Welcome to the Lead Pedal Podcast with your host, Bruce Outridge, where he talks all things trucking. Now let's get rolling.
What are new drivers saying about different things in the industry? Veteran drivers are getting sick of, having their industry degraded, being unsafe on the road, all those kind of things. And we had some interesting conversations throughout the month with some veteran drivers, and we're going to recap a little bit of that for you here. Before we get into that, though, let me tell you a little bit about Bison Transport. You have one day, if you're listening to this the day of, you have one day to get in with their sign-on bonuses, because they go until the end of March. So if you're a cross-border company driver, they are offering a $750 sign-on bonus until the end of March. If you're an owner-operator single, $1,500 is the sign-on bonus to the end of March. And if you're a team, $3,000 sign-on bonus for owner-operator teams. Now, of course, they've got some great benefits. They have steady miles. They pay on time every time. For owner-operators, you've got service discounts, you've got parts discounts, and you even have fuel discounts. That's enough of a reason right there to want to go to work for someone like Bison Transport. So where do you find out about all the opportunities? BisonDriving.com is where you want to go to check that out. All right, let's get on to our program.
Be sure to share the podcast on your favorite social media channels.
All right, so we talked with a number of people this month on the podcast. If you listen to it, we had OJ Sidor on there. We had John DeGroot. We had Gordon McGill. We've had some interesting conversations, and I think, really kind of summarized the frustration that drivers are feeling. Some of them are really, really kind of, just sick of the road. Like, people are retiring. We say we have a driver shortage, but we have more people retiring than anything else. And there's lots of licensed drivers. The ones that are out there are not really the ones we want out there. So there's a lot of conversations going on as to what's the right one to do, what's the right way to go about it. And we had some interesting conversations with drivers. OJ Sidor started a podcast. He's with Scott Lynn, been hauling produce for a long time. He's been a veteran, second, third generation driver. And we had an interesting conversation about the state of the industry and what he's seeing, because he's now in recruiting. He started his own podcast, but he's also a recruiter. And what he's seeing on the road is very frustrating. This is the reason he started his podcast. And I see a lot of veteran drivers doing this, where they're trying to give back, and they're trying to say, hey guys, here's what it's doing, but the new generation just doesn't seem to be listening. So I had an interesting conversation with OJ about the state of the industry and what he thought, and here's what he had to say. Here's a little bit of that conversation.
In a day cab so that was 1988, and that was running to Montreal, and it all started from there, and here we go 38 years later.
I think that's the way we have to do it nowadays. I mean, I stepped into it too. My parents were accountants. They were from Guyana. They came over. They knew nothing about trucking, trust me. But my dad said, you're going to get a job. I left school. So at 17, I fell into the moving part as a helper. And 18, I got my straight truck license, and then it went up from there. And I did the same thing. You start with Toronto, Montreal, or Toronto, Ottawa, or something like that. And you build your routes and get up there. And we don't do that anymore. We just throw them into the deep end without a fryer, right? Like, it's crazy.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Yeah, 100%. There was a chain back then that you started off, and you started here, and you grew to the next step and the next step and the next step.
Yeah.
And it was a progression, and I think it was good, because hey, if I had bought a truck that first week, I knew what I was doing, but I didn't really know what I was doing.
Oh.
I was winging it. Now, I did have the advantage too, Bruce, of being second generation, and from 14, 15, down in the swampland roads of South Oshawa, my dad would take me down in the truck, and I was shifting the gears. So I certainly had an advantage that way, that I knew what I was doing to a certain extent. But going out on your own, of course, is a whole different ballgame, right? It's a lot harder to back up when your daddy's not there.
Well, I gotta tell you, my very first experience in a truck, I was being a helper for a guy who had a day cab Kenworth, and he was one of our owner operators for us, and he was going to Ottawa. He needed a second guy to help him deliver the load once we got to the move. And I got in the truck. I think it was like a Saturday morning or something. I got in the truck. We're going on. And he said, "Did you bring your sunglasses?" And I'm like 17 years old. And I go, "No." Back then, kids didn't wear sunglasses the way they do today. So I don't think I even had a pair of sunglasses.
Right.
And I said, "No." He says, "Oh, okay. You'll be sleeping in about 2 minutes." And we got over that hill, almost where you were standing on the bridge. When you go over that hill in Coburg, and you look like you're driving into the sun. I think I was sleeping by that point. And I don't remember half the trip. And I remember, that's how fast that's my favorite part of the 401. If you're in the morning time, when you're going over and the sun is so big, it looks like you're driving right into it, for sure. What is your daily job today? You're with Scott Lynn. What is it you do? Is podcasting your job? I don't know if that's what you're doing right now.
Podcasting is my hobby. It's funny. So, in the 90s, I did a lot of auto freight out of the Oshawa area. And then I was working directly with General Motors. And I thought, Bruce, I was going to retire from there. And then 2008 hit. And we know what happened in Oshawa GM. And I was out of work. Never thought I would be there. And I found Scott Lynn. And I joined Scott Lynn. I started off as an owner operator. And then I spent a lot of time running California for Scott Lynn. And I guess we go 15 years with them and really love the company, love driving for them. Very good to me and my family. And then a little bit ago, it was time for OJ to hang up the keys and move into an office position. So now I am a recruiter and / driver manager with Scott Lynn. And Scott Lynn is very good at taking the old boys and moving them into these positions. I feel that I have a lot to offer in the recruiting because I've been there, Bruce. So when a guy calls and talks about, being in a snowstorm in Wawa, I've actually lived it. I know what he's dealing with. So I can also share my 38 years of driving experience and, quite frankly, all my years of the Scott Lynn system and how we work and what does work and what doesn't work. So that's what I've been doing. That's my full-time job. And the Talking Truck podcast, that's just something I'm really doing on my own. And I'm really enjoying it. We're only a month in. We started it in January of 26. So no, that's not my full-time gig, but I love doing it. It's a lot of fun, just trying to get out there, talking to some different people, kind of like what you're doing, Bruce.
Yeah.
And, but no, my full-time real quote unquote job is definitely the recruiting with Scott Lynn.
Oh, that's cool. So what are you seeing coming into the industry? I mean, whether you believe there's a driver shortage or not, your guys' program is fairly unique. And I've done training in the past. I work with a lot of new drivers, and produce is not for everybody. I'm the first one to admit that because I worked for a company. We did the odd load of produce, and if I could tell you produce horror stories all day, I won't. I'm sure you've got your own. But,
oh yeah.
It's not the kind of industry. It's not like general freight or something where there's a lot of particulars, time management, and the freight and temperature control and all that kind of stuff goes into it. So, is that still something that's viable for new people? I mean, it's good as far as work always being there, but it's really hard to get people to understand that kind of system. What's your thoughts on that from a recruiter standpoint?
You're absolutely right as far as steady work goes. Right now, the industry is, kind of up and down. We're dealing with a lot of issues in the industry, especially if you're hauling steel and cars and that. With the food and the produce, you're absolutely right, Bruce. You might not have bought a new car this week, but I know you went to the grocery store. So that does keep us going. You're absolutely right. Produce is not for everybody. It is a different animal inside of the trucking industry. Everything is timed. When the product is picked in California, really when it's picked off the tree or out of the ground, there's a time limit to get it into the GTA. Then there's a time limit to get it into the DC and then out to the stores for public consumption. It's a lot to deal with. As far as drivers coming in doing it, yes, absolutely. You're looking for I would say a driver that is more detail orientated would fit in because yes, you're absolutely right. You have to watch that reefer temperature. You have to load it properly. You have to allow for spacing so that the product can breathe while it's being transported. So absolutely, there is a different level. And sometimes I know the guys will feel, hey, we got to get it there, but we really do, because if you're hauling widgets, it really doesn't matter when it gets there. With produce, everything is timed. As far as training the guys, absolutely. If a fella is open to it, he can absolutely be trained for reefer. Obviously, we love guys that have reefer experience, but if you don't, it's something we can certainly work on and train the right individual.
It always used to be one of the better paying parts of the industry. Is it still that way? Is it still,
I would say yes, absolutely.
Produce was always up there as far as if you want to make money. I think it's because of the miles, but it's the miles, right? Like people, I'm sure you have local drivers and stuff, but people get into produce and go, okay, I want to be off on weekends. And I go, well, no, because you leave Thursday for California. You're not getting a weekend ever. I don't know if it's changed, but I never ran that far west. I was more hazmat, and I kind of stayed, east of Nebraska, but so I didn't do a lot of that California stuff. But a lot of people are. Is it still the way the industry is? Because I'm thinking you guys got terminals in Florida and California, and so someone should be expecting to run those lanes if they're getting into this business, right?
I will say 10 years steady running Toronto, California, and you're absolutely right, Bruce. You leave on a Thursday night, Friday morning. I want to tell you, now running California again inside of the produce lanes is a different animal. That's a lifestyle. That's not a job.
Right.
And you have to have a great support system at home to make it work. And you do sacrifice. Absolutely. I want to say the last year was probably home 2 weekends out of the year because the California stuff is leaving on the Thursday, Friday, get out there, deliver Monday.
Hey folks, before we get on with with the rest of our episode here, let me tell you a little bit about Chrome Supply Warehouse. That's right, that's where veteran drivers are getting their parts for their show trucks, and we are getting into show season right now. So if you are looking for unique parts, whether it's interior, exterior, you need some new chrome custom parts, or maybe you just want to dress yourself in the best trucker tees, then Chrome Supply Warehouse has it for you. They're located in Belleville, Ontario, between Toronto and Montreal, exit 538 north side of the 401 highway. They've got a big blue glass building there. Go check them out. 8,000 square feet of the best truck parts you ever had. And also, if you can't get to Belleville, because we understand you may not be going that way, then check them out online at chromesupplywarehouse.com. All right, let's continue with what we're doing as far as our conversations with veteran drivers. Our next one was with John DeGroot. Now, you guys know John. He is a veteran steel hauler. Used to be with Samuel Steel and Kim Tam. He is now out west. He's now in an operations safety role with a company, Aerostream Logistics, out in the West Coast. So he went right across the country. And so he's got a great view of what the trucking industry is like in today's world. And we sat down and talked with him. We did a 3-part with John talking about Red Seal. This is his passion. This is one of the reasons he's gotten into this, because of the way the industry is going, because of why things are there. And we talked to him at length in those episodes about what he's doing, why he's doing it. And I wanted to offer you just a little bit of take on why we need Red Seal from what he's seeing from the safety seat out in BC. Here we go. Let's get into our conversation with John DeGroot, Safety Manager of Aerostream Logistics. I know you're going to love it.
By far my favorite station.
You're the best. Oh yeah.
I love you guys.
These are things we didn't deal with when we were getting into this business. I never felt threatened. I felt safe in a truck. And I got to the point where even pulling a 5-axle load of steel down the road on the 400 series highways with 140,000 gross, I didn't feel safe anymore.
Right.
Because it wasn't just the four-wheelers we were watching anymore. It was the other trucks. And that's just unacceptable. Everybody has a right to a safe workplace. So with Red Seal, I started an association on LinkedIn. I've got about a following of 200 people, like-minded industry leaders, drivers, owner-operators, and I am trying to get the word out there. That's my focus. I want to hear from the drivers. I want to hear from the schools. This is what we're proposing. This is what, and I worked alongside PTAC. I was a supporter of their initiatives. I've talked with the Western Professional Truckers Association out here in Victoria. I wanted to have an allegiance with people that had the same strive and ambitions as I did. And I saw that in the PTAC group. And it just came to a point where membership wasn't no longer an option. I had to do something to join on. So they've made me an affiliate. And by the sounds of it, sitting on the Red Seal committee, working along with Mike. And I'm looking forward to it because, you know, if this is my little contribution to trucking after a lifetime in this business, I'll take it. And if it makes my daughter run down the road a little bit safer in the middle of the day, I don't have a choice.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. I feel the same way. It was always the four wheelers. Remember back in the day, it was always the four wheelers. And even if they messed up, 9 times out of 10, the truck driver is still going to be fine. But now we're at a point where no, it's head-on collisions and all kinds of stuff with other trucks, and that's the stuff I'm seeing out there. And it's not helping that AI can recreate an accident that's not even happening. That's even worse. But it's gotten crazy, and I'm driving around quite a bit, not in my truck anymore, but and I'm, my wife always says, what, have they got something for you? Because I always can tell when someone's about to cut somebody off without the signal and all that. Just like, we learned to watch tires and those kind of things back in the day. So what has been the feedback? Unfortunately, you and I run in circles where we're already kind of with the converted, like the people who we're talking to a lot of times at conferences are already on the same frame as mine. I mean, if we could sign a checklist and get it done tomorrow, we could just have everybody in the room. They would sign right on the spot. What are you hearing from other people, from other drivers in your area? Is this something that I keep hearing is something we need? So I'm not sure why there's going to be such a fight to get it done. What are you hearing?
I think with the experienced drivers, a lot of it is, I've been doing this 30 years. Why do I want to go back to school again? I already have a job. I already know what I'm doing. So obviously we need to look at some type of a grandfathering clause for the old timers like ourselves, but it'll be based on merit, what you've done, what is provable. I want Red Seal to stand for something that is just like any other trades in this country, whether it's a plumber, welder, mechanic. It is just a badge, but it's how you carry yourself as a professional that's going to make the big difference. And I want drivers to understand that how we carry and represent ourselves. We're already professionals. A lot of us out there, we take a lot of pride in what we do and what we drive, and you see it on the highway, you see it at the truck shows. But I'm hearing a mixture of things. There's the threat of autonomous trucks, self-driving units. But drivers aren't going to have a job. Our infrastructure isn't built for that yet, and it won't be built, I don't think, in my lifetime or maybe half my grandchildren's lifetime. I think we need to look at the actual realities, alternative fuels. Those are going to be the things that we're going to see transitioning. Maybe the wipeout of diesel fuel. But trucks are here to stay, and the driver is here to stay. So I kind of make that point to them, if you're scared about driving up Highway 11 and 17 or the 401 or out on the Trans-Canada out in BC here, the only way we're going to change that is not just with Red Seal's education, teaching people, other road users, and I want Red Seal to be a big component like that, just like the road nights were years ago. And I've spoken with many former road knights. I've worked alongside them. Creme of the creme, they really are. Those guys carry themselves the way I think Red Seal drivers should also carry themselves. If we're gonna make this a thing, we have to make it about something that's solid, something that has full transparency, and that's what I'm explaining to the drivers in the group and our Facebook experts, and we've all come across them. There's already been things happen. What was been tried, it didn't work, it failed. No, it didn't fail. It just wasn't followed through. We've tried this before, we're aware of it, but I think we've got the right group together, the right people, the right mindset. And quite frankly, you just have to turn on the news at night to know that we need to make a difference.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. I was just listening to a podcast this morning with Stan Campbell, Jim Park, and Don McDonald was on there talking about PTAC, and the importance of getting that done and getting it through government. And it's funny because I was talking with a pilot the other day, another totally different event, not an event to do with transportation, but we need to actually adopt that model. You don't see that. Thank you. You don't see the crashes of planes the way we do with trucks. But
Yeah.
when something happens, there is a whole line of stuff that happens. Like every country or person or part is involved in that investigation.
Yeah.
It's not just handed off to that country or province or whatever it might be. It's and we're following basically the same type of rules, the same regulations. I understand we may not be able to do it at the level of a Boeing or something, but we have to get the people for enforcement and government? What are those talks happening? Are they happening at all, or as far as Red Seal goes? Or
No, I'm new to the PTAC committee with them. I know that Kim and Don have met with several rule makers and agencies, and we've discussed this. The main focus right now is we need to get skilled trade or trucking as a skilled trade. It has to be set in the books, but we need provincial alignment. Alberta has taken the lead. We've all been there. We've heard about it. BC is taking initiatives, Ontario is taking initiatives, but we need to get 5 provinces online. Once we can get that skilled trade commitment from the provinces, we can then look at Red Seal designation and putting a program together. And the one thing I want to make sure that everybody knows is like this is going to be put together by not folks that have read about trucking, not from folks that maybe saw a truck on TV once. These are guys that have sat behind the wheels and have taught and have been a part of the industry for their whole lives. And that's the way this industry needs to be rebuilt. It needs to be built on experience, some old school mentality, and use technology to benefit the driver, not to take away from them. And I think that's something we probably forgot 25 years ago. We started making all these crash avoidance systems, and we stopped focusing on the driver. We stopped training. We stopped caring about that trade, and we made it an entry level, putting automatics in trucks, making it easier. You can put whatever you want in these trucks. It's still a 40-ton plus machine running down the highway at 65 miles an hour. And we've seen the damages that it can do if it's put in the wrong hands. And that's what I'm trying to change.
Yeah. Do you see in your vision of Red Seal, and I don't know if you've got this mapped out on your wall in your room, do you see it?
Give me time.
Do you see it? One thing I think we're missing in the industry is the STEP program. And when I think of how I became, and I didn't know anything about it, I didn't come from a long list of truck drivers like yourself. But when I got in, I started in the moving industry as a helper. Then I got my D license. I was D licensed for a couple years. Then I got my A, but I was still kind of regional for a little while. It took me probably 7 years before I got to a point where I could actually go on the highway outside of a province. And I'm not even talking in big sleeper trucks. I'm talking more in, single axle cab units and that kind of thing back in the day. But I felt very graduated. Like even the moving company would allow us to do a trip to Montreal or Ottawa as a driver, and they paid for the truck. I had to hire my own help. I had to pay for my fuel. I had to pay for my meals, hotel. So I was kind of learning that owner operator way in a little bit. And they kind of awarded a driver each month. A driver would take a different. So you made a little more money by doing that, but at least it gave you a taste of what it's like to be kind of on the highway and moving. We need to do that because right now we go right to the guy gets in and takes chemical load down to Florida, and he's never even turned the corner in Burlington, right? So, do you see that as part of your vision? Because I would really like to see that come back.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think about how I come up in this business. I started grooming into this business from the day I could walk, and by the time I was 18, I essentially had 15, 16 years of training. 4 or 5 direct hands-on. I used to lump French fries out of the back of a reefer with my dad, 1,800, 2,000 cases, and as much as I hated it at the time, it was actual hard work. It gave me probably in the best shape I'd ever been in my life. But even at 18, I wasn't ready. I didn't know it all. And these guys are going through 100, 150-hour courses. even if it's a 2,000-hour course, you can't possibly know all the little tricks of the trade, how to put on a set of chains, how to go and run the mountains, what this blizzard's going to look like as opposed to driving across the plains in the Midwest. It's all different. And I think it should be a step program where you need to have a normal driver's license for a pleasure vehicle for at least 2 years. So, especially if you're newly landed, don't have a lot of experience, that way you're getting used to our road system, our laws, and then you can upgrade to a commercial license. Well, I think you should start out in a transit van or a 3-ton and graduate yourself up. Get used to the masses, get used to the G-forces that are against you, and then slowly grade yourself up. Have an endorsement for mountain driving. So you have to have so many hours of working with a licensed, certified driver to learn how to run the mountains, put on chains, when to know to stop, how to trip plan, how to look at the weather forecast, or an endorsement for steel or an endorsement for tanker. We could step it up from dry good vans right up to doing oversized if that's the type of endorsement you're seeking. This will be about how versatile you want to be as a driver, how many certifications and endorsements you want. I think it should be an endless cycle, just like any plumber, welder. They have their specialties and what they want to do. And I don't think it's going to be a mandatory system in Canada.
All right, so that's some of the ways that people are trying to make a difference in the industry through giving back past their experience, giving back through cause. But if you look at the causes that we've got Red Seal, we've got different podcasts, we've got books. Everybody is trying to do their thing, but they're all saying the same thing. We need the professionalism back in the industry. We've got all this tech, we've got all of this training, we've got all of these systems, and nothing seems to be working. So what do we need to do? Well, I believe Red Seal is one way of doing this, so I'm big on that. But I think all the drivers, the veteran drivers, are now starting to get together. And if you're a new driver to this industry, you need to really listen, because you are missing some key components to making your career good. All of us have had great careers over time, and this is how we're doing it. So hope you enjoyed that. If you want to listen to the full episodes, head back to any of the weeks in March. OJ Sonora was our first guest the first week of March. John DeGroot, second week of March. We even had a P-TAC in there the third week, and then the fourth week of March was Gord McGill. So go and check those episodes out. You can find them on the Lead Pedal Podcast. Listen to them at length. Check out their podcasts. Check out their books, and get yourself educated. Let's straighten up this industry. We all need to do that. Thanks very much for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
This has been another episode of the Lead Pedal Podcast. For more information or to subscribe to the podcast, visit theleadpedalpodcast.com and be sure to follow the podcast on Facebook and Twitter.